Are the hype levels for Cyberpunk 2077 just too much? Welcome back to all the Cyberpunk 2077 fans out there. My name is Ato Darashi Neruku, and it is once again time for me to complain about Kotaku. So in a recent update, I talked about how Kotaku was compiling their complaints for clickbait dollars, essentially. Now I'm here again to levy a solid reply to Kotaku's article again. In a new article titled, "The Cyberpunk 2077 Hype is Just Too Much," Kotaku games journalist Nathan Grayson adds little value and writes an entire article for sake of writing an article. He mentions that nearly everybody will be playing Cyberpunk 2077 when it releases, and then covers a transcript of a conversation featured on Night City Wire, which is a live streaming show featured on Twitch that covers updates and interviews and some other various things about Cyberpunk 2077. What I think is weird about the entire article is essentially just the content of the article itself. It doesn't quite have the substance and he doesn't really express a full opinion. I think somewhere in there that Nathan could be projecting. He's a little bit jealous because he doesn't have the ability to create something as successful as Cyberpunk 2077, even though the game hasn't released yet. And there is thorough lack of evidence to support his thesis that there's too much hype, yet provides no evidence. In the article, Grayson writes, "But anyway, I do think there's a lot of subtle things that CD Projekt has done to court hype in ways that have been both good for them and damaging for everyone's sanity." Whose sanity? Come on, man. There's no sanity that's being damaged here. There's no need for you to be upset. There is no PTSD that you're getting from Cyberpunk releasing marketing material, man. Calm down. He goes on, "I think they knew pretty quickly that they had a game that could be massive on their hands. So they started doing all these events and things. They have their ongoing Night City Wire series, which is basically a long infomercial on Twitch." There, I would have to agree a little bit in a sense that it does act as promotional material for the game, but instead they have a lot of information about the background of Cyberpunk 2077, about Cyberpunk in general, about CD Projekt Red, about what the developers had to go through when creating such an in-depth world. There's a lot of background information here. It acts very much so like a documentary where they cover a lot of good, useful information for people who want to know more. So he goes on and continues, "They've reached this point where people are on one hand hyped, but on the other, there's already built-in brand loyalty. There's nothing wrong with brand loyalty. There's nothing wrong with it. Yes, I don't think shilling for a company is necessarily okay, but when you want to be part of something, when you want to play a game, which is all this is, or when you want to just appreciate the efforts that CD Projekt Red has put forward in not only Cyberpunk 2077, but in games like The Witcher 3, and them sticking to being a great developer, yeah, that loyalty does come in. It's not just from what we're experiencing here with Cyberpunk 2077. It's an entire history of them just acting like good, simple, decent human beings." So let's go back to Nathan here. He says, "They've turned being a fan of Cyberpunk into an identity." Come on, man. Aren't you one of the people who makes everything an identity? I'm going to leave that there. "And that's when you get like people just going and saying if anyone says potentially negative things about the game, or an army of people who want to defend crunch or transphobic tweets, which is, again, just bonkers." I can't believe he wrote "like" in an article as if he was speaking it, and that's when you get like people like learn how to write, man. That's not okay. Not to be written in an article that way. It's weird. Additionally, he does go on to say there's people just going and saying if anyone says potentially negative things about the game. That's not entirely true. There are those who will defend Cyberpunk tooth and nail. And yeah, I could be considered one of those people from time to time. However, we've been waiting for this game for 8 years. A game that we wanted to play and experience for quite a long time. Yes, there's going to be those people who have their emotions attached. Then he says there's an army of people who defend crunch or transphobic tweets. Really? That's all you have to say? There are those who defend crunch. It's something that's part of the game industry as a whole. You accept it, you live with it, you learn it, and just go on with your life. As far as the transphobic tweets are concerned, I think that's the entire purpose of your entire article here. You're upset that there are those people who defended transphobic tweets, and now you're upset, so you wrote a whole entire argument for something that really just could have been a tweet. Get a life, Nathan. It's just sad. I think after everything is said, Nathan Grayson made what could have been a simple tweet into an entire hit piece article, just another way for him to generate some revenue for poor old Kotaku. And all he did was add in the transcripts from Night City Wire to bolster the character limit of the article for SEO purposes. And for what? To add that he doesn't like Cyberpunk 2077? Okay man, good for you. You don't like a game. Now let's actually talk about something that is of substance. Is there such a thing as too much hype for a game? Yes, there is. Let's talk about why that is. Games typically have a way to let people down. I remember waiting for Anthem to release. It was probably the absolute last game that I was hyped for, if I can even say that. I had learned my lesson before with other games such as The Division, which I wasn't a super big fan of after it launched. I typically don't tend to get hyped for games anymore, simply because the state that Anthem released in, or Rainbow Six before it was fixed, or so many other games arrive in a broken state that getting hyped for a game, or pre-ordering even, can be a huge waste of money. So yeah, hyping up something long before you get a chance to experience it for yourself can be detrimental. However, Cyberpunk 2077 is not the same thing. We have a developer who has a great history of supporting their fans. We have a developer who has great industry practices. On top of that, we've been waiting for 8 years. I think it's okay to hype at this point. All right, we're reaching the last little bit here. We're in the home stretch of the wait, and we're finally ready to experience the game. Well, I'd love to stay in chat, but I have to get back to my Cyberpunk 2077 shrine. Additionally, I can't let the hype die down. So let's go ahead and hear from you. Do you think that there is a such thing as too much hype? Is there too much hype surrounding this release in particular? Or is it justified? Let's hear what you have to say in the chat, comments, or my community Discord, which is linked below. If you're enjoying the content, consider dropping a like. And if you'd like to hear more from me, subscribe so you can stay up to date on all my video releases. With that, it's time to get back to the music. I don't want Kotaku thinking I'm blatantly shilling and defending CD Projekt or something.